Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today let's learn about the famous playwright R.B. Sheridan. R.B. Sheridan, 1751-1816. Full name is Richard Brinsley Butler Sheridan, born in Dublin, Ireland. Father Thomas Sheridan, who was a well-known actor and elocutionist. Mother Frances Sheridan, a playwright and a novelist. Siblings, he had siblings, but none as famous as he. Sheridan was born into a literary and a theatrical family. His mother's plays and novels gave him early exposure to drama. His father focused on pronunciation and public speaking skills Sheridan later mastered as both a playwright and a politician. Sheridan attended Harrow School, one of England's most prestigious public schools, and received a non-university degree, though he was deeply influenced by classical literature, rhetorical training, and satirical writing. He studied law for a short period, but never practiced it. He eloped in 1772 with Elizabeth Linley, a famed soprano and heiress, after a dramatic romantic rivalry and a duel with another suitor. He married Elizabeth in 1773. She was a muse for many of his works. Elizabeth died in 1792. Sheridan later married the person Esther Jane Ogle in 1795. Sheridan had one legitimate son, Thomas Sheridan, and one illegitimate daughter. Now let's analyze his major works. Major plays, first of all, The Rivals, 1775. A comedy of manners satirizing courtship and social pretense, introduced the iconic character Mrs. Malaprop, whose humorous misuse of words led to the coining of the term malapropism. The next work, St. Patrick's Day, 1775, a short farce reflecting Irish wit and military antics. The next work, The Duenna, 1775, a comic opera co-written with his father-in-law Thomas Linley, hugely popular in its time, filled with a satire on marriage and society. Next work, The School for Scandal, 1777, widely considered his masterpiece, a biting satire on gossip, hypocrisy, and appearances in elite London society. The next work, The Critic, 1779, a partial mockery of theatre critics and playwrights. The next work, A Trip to Scarborough, 1777, a clever adaptation of Van Berg's work, The Relapse. Now let's analyze the key themes in his work. Hypocrisy and social pretension, especially in The School for Scandal and the work The Rivals. Satire of upper class, wit and verbal dexterity used to expose moral and intellectual shallowness. Marriage and courtship, romantic intrigues, love versus money, arranged versus love marriage. Language and miscommunication, notably through characters like Mrs. Malaprop. Critique of theatre and criticism, explored in the work The Critic. Gossip and reputation, how intellectuals are judged on a social whispers and a surface level judgment. Now let's analyze his political career. He entered Parliament in 1780 as a member of the Whig Party. held the seat for Strafford and later Westminster until 1812. Sheridan is known for his oratory, regarded as one of the finest speakers in British parliamentary history. Major role in impeaching Warren Hastings, the first Governor-General of India, over corruption charges, delivered a famous speech that lasted 5 hours. Sheridan is known for advocacy of freedom of the press, anti-corruption and big liberalism. He is also known for political alignment with Charles James Fox and Edmund Burke. He criticized the Napoleonic Wars and a government authoritarianism. Sheridan's theatre management. He became a manager and a part owner of Drury Lane Theatre in 1776. Refurbished it and turned it into London's premier playhouse. The theatre was destroyed by fire in 1809, a loss that ruined him financially. Famously, when the fire raged, he calmly sat with a glass of wine and said, "A man may surely be allowed to take a glass of wine by his own fireside." Let's analyze the honors and awards he received. No formal title or honors, as his financial and political decline overshadowed his legacy during his lifetime. Posthumously recognized as one of the greatest comic dramatists in English literature. Malapropism is a linguistic term, derives from his character. He is buried in Poets' Corner, Westminster Abbey, a mark of national literary reverence. Sheridan's financial difficulties and decline. Constantly in debt due to poor financial management and political expenses. He was imprisoned briefly for debt. He died in poverty on July 7, 1816, despite being celebrated as a wit and a genius. At his funeral, crowds gathered and Lord Byron spoke highly of him. His legacy. The School for Scandal remains one of the most frequently performed restoration-style comedies today. Sheridan shaped the British comic drama between the Restoration and Victorian periods. His works influenced the writers like Oscar Wilde for the work The Importance of Being Honest and George Bernard Shaw. He is revered as a master of wit, irony and satire. Now let's analyze the present importance of Sheridan. Studied widely in literature, theatre and political oratory courses, regarded as a transitional figure between Restoration comedy and Victorian moral theatre, continues to be performed and adapted in modern formats, stage, radio and TV. His characters, particularly Mrs. Malaprop and a lady's neighbor, are cultural archetypes. His sharp dialogues are used to teach verbal wit, rhetoric and satire. Let's have a look at the rare contributions and lesser-known facts about Sheridan. Sheridan never published a collected edition of his plays during his lifetime. He played a key behind-the-scenes role in 18th century British politics, but he remained politically sidelined due to internal big rivalries. He was the only dramatist of his time to also be a significant politician. His second wife, Esther Jane, was much younger and the marriage was not happy. Sheridan wrote no plays after 1780, focusing instead on politics and theatre management. Now let's analyze the major works of Sheridan. First of all, The Rival, 1775, A comedy of man is centered around a romantic misunderstandings and a social pretensions. The play features Captain Jack Absolute, who woos Lydia Langish under a false name, and is Mrs. Malaprop, whose misuse of words adds comic relief. Themes include class, marriage, mistaken identity, and a language. The next work, The School for Scandal, 1777. This satirical masterpiece critiques gossip and superficiality in upper-class society. Central characters include Lady Sneeball, a scheming socialite, Charles Surface, the virtuous prodigal, and Joseph Surface, a hypocritical villain. Themes include hypocrisy, repetition, family loyalty, and moral integrity. The next work, The Critic, 1779. A brilliant satire of theatrical production and literary criticism. Mr. Puff, the central character, is a self-important dramatist whose absurd play becomes the subject of mockery. Themes include artistic pretension, vanity in literature, and the artificiality of drama. The next work, St. Patrick's Day, or the Scheming Lieutenant, 1775. A partial one-act play about a Lieutenant O'Connor who disguises himself to win the hand of his beloved Letitia. It celebrates Irish wit and charm while poking fun at a military authority. The play's themes include cleverness in love and a cultural identity. The next work, The Duenna, 1775, a comic opera co-written with his father-in-law Thomas Linley about a forbidden love and mistaken identities. It follows Louisa, a merchant's daughter, who flees from an arranged marriage with the help of her governess, the Duenna. Themes include love versus duty, social mobility, and a deception. The next work, A Trip to Scarborough, 1777. An adaptation of Sir John Vanbrugh's work, The Relapse. This play explores love, infidelity, and a social satire. Characters like a Tom Fashion and a Barenthia play out intrigues in the fashionable town of Scarborough. Sheridan toned down the bawdiness of the original to suit 18th century tastes. The next work, Verses to the Memory of Garrick, 1779, a poetic tribute to the great actor David Garrick, celebrating his influence on theatre. The verses reflect Sheridan's admiration for performance and the role of the actor as both the artist and the interpreter. Themes include memory, performance, and a theatrical legacy. The next work, Cleo's Protest, a satirical poem written under the pseudonym Cleo, aimed at political corruption and public affairs. Sheridan uses biting wit to critique abuses of power and political hypocrisy. He highlights his dual identity as both a dramatist and a parliamentarian. The next work, The Camp, 1778. A light-hearted musical farce responding to fears of French invasion during the American Revolutionary War. The characters include soldiers and townspeople who blur the lines between military valor and a comic confusion. The play reinforces patriotic morale with a humor and a charm. The next work, The Foresters, Fragment, an unfinished dramatic piece believed to explore themes of wilderness, exile, and human freedom. Though incomplete, it suggests Sheridan's interest in broader philosophical and natural themes. Little is known of its characters due to its fragmentary state. The next work, Pizarro, 1799, adapted from Cott's Bow. A political drama based on the Spanish conquest of Peru, adapted from the German playwright August von Korsba. The noble character Zola defends his people against the treacherous Pizarro, highlighting themes of colonialism, loyalty, and resistance. It was used to stir patriotic sentiment during wartime Britain. The next work, Speech on the Impeachment of Warren Hastings, 1787-1794. Though not a play, this famous parliamentary speech reveals Sheridan's dramatic command of language. He denounced Hastings for corruption in colonial India, using moral outreach and a oratorial skill. It showcases themes of justice, empire, and human rights. The next work, The Glorious 1st of June, 1794, with music by Sheridan. A patriotic entertainment piece celebrating a British novel of victory, recombines drama and spectacle to boost their national pride. The themes include heroism, sacrifice, and a national identity. The next work is a dramatic adaptation, that is, The Vicar of Wakefield. Sheridan considered dramatizing Oliver Goldsmith's novel, though no completed version survives. The story revolves around the character Dr. Primrose, a kind vicar who faces moral tests and misfortunes. The themes include virtue, providence, and resilience. Epigrams and poems. Sheridan wrote numerous short poems and witty epigrams. These reflect his sharp intellect and a talent for verbal irony, often on love, politics, or social commentary. They show his versatility beyond the stage. The next work, A Monody on the Death of Mr. Garrick, 1779. Another tribute to actor Garrick, this poem mounts the loss of theatrical brilliance. Sheridan praises Garrick's unique gift of uniting nature and art. The poem connects the personal with the national loss of a great artist. The next work, The Persians, translation fragment. Sheridan is believed to have worked on a translation of Aeschylus' work, The Persians. Though incomplete, it reflects his classical education and interest in tragedy and empire. It also reveals his philosophical engagement with power and war. The next work, The Rights of Englishmen, a political pamphlet. A lesser-known political writing defending civil liberties during a period of governmental overreach. Sheridan argues for parliamentary accountability and press freedom. The themes are liberty, civic duty, and resistance to tyranny. The next work, The Speech on the Repeal of the Test Act, 1790. A political speech advocating for the rights of non-Anglicans in Britain. It demonstrates Sheridan's support for religious tolerance and civil equality. This aligns with the Enlightenment themes of reason and reform. The next work, The Quaker, a fragment. An incomplete comic opera exploring the life and the morals of a Quaker community, likely to have a contrasted simplicity with a worldly ambition through romantic or social intrigue. Though fragmentary, it shows Sheridan's curiosity about the different religious cultures.